The world of visas and immigration often feels like an endless maze of paperwork, interviews, and waiting. For millions of people, getting a visa to a country like Canada has always been a dream, but also a major challenge. That's why when Canada suddenly announced that 10 African countries are now visa-free, the news spread like wildfire across the continent and beyond. It sounded too good to be true. A major Western nation opening its doors, removing barriers and saying, "Come in, you are welcome." But behind the celebration, behind the smiling headlines, lies a story that is far more complex. A story about politics, economics, and the quiet calculations of power. And tonight, we're going to uncover the hidden reasons why Canada made this move and what it really means for Africa, for Canada, and for the future of migration. At first glance, the decision looks like a generous act of inclusion. For decades, African travelers have faced some of the toughest visa restrictions in the world. Even well-qualified professionals, entrepreneurs, or tourists often found themselves denied entry without explanation. The message was clear. The doors to the West were tightly guarded. But now, Canada, one of the most desirable destinations on the planet, has swung those doors wide open for 10 African nations. The question is, why? To answer that, we have to start with the reality of Canada itself. Canada is a country with breathtaking landscapes, enormous resources, and a reputation for being one of the most welcoming nations in the world. But beneath the surface lies a demographic crisis. Canada's population is aging fast. Birth rates are too low to replace the workforce. Industries from healthcare to agriculture are desperately short of labor. Without immigration, Canada would not be able to sustain its economy. And so, while this move looks like a gift to Africa, it is also a lifeline for Canada. By granting visa-free access, Canada isn't just inviting tourists, it's opening the door for talent, for ambition, for the energy of young Africans to flow into its cities, its industries, and its future. But economics are only one part of the story. There is also geopolitics. In the last 2 decades, Africa has become the center of global attention. China has invested billions into African roads, railways, and mines. Russia has expanded its influence, offering military partnerships and political support. Even countries like Turkey, India, and the Gulf states have deepened their presence. The West, meanwhile, has often been accused of ignoring Africa, except when it came to extracting resources. By suddenly easing travel, Canada is signaling that it doesn't want to be left behind. It wants to be seen as a partner, a friend, and a gateway for African talent to flourish. In a world where influence is measured not only in trade, but in people, this is a powerful gesture. But gestures are rarely free of strategy. Look closely at the list of the 10 African countries visa-free. They are not chosen randomly. Some are resource-rich nations. Others are politically stable with growing middle classes. Many have large youth populations with high rates of English or French fluency. The selection reveals Canada's priorities. It is not only about tourism, it is about future migration streams. These are countries from which Canada expects students, skilled workers, and entrepreneurs to come. It is in many ways a careful investment in human capital. Now, here's where the story gets more intriguing. For decades, Africans who wished to travel often faced a humiliating process of proving their financial worth, their family ties, or their intention to return home. The visa-free decision suddenly erases those barriers for millions. But skeptics argue that this freedom will not be equal. Yes, it will be easier to fly to Canada, but staying, working, or building a life there will still require other permits, applications, and approvals. In other words, the gates may be open, but the path beyond the gates is still tightly controlled. But yet, perception matters.
For a young graduate in Accra or Nairobi, the idea that Canada is now only a plane ticket away is deeply powerful. For business leaders, it signals new opportunities for trade and cooperation. For families divided by oceans, it creates hope of reunion. This shift is as much psychological as it is practical. Canada is not just changing policy, it is changing how Africa sees Canada. The timing of this announcement is also worth examining. Immigration debates in the Western world have become more heated than ever. In Europe and the United States, anti-immigrant sentiment is on the rise. Borders are tightening, asylum seekers face harsher treatment, and walls, both real and political, are being built. By contrast, Canada is branding itself as the exception, a country that still values openness, diversity, and inclusion. But behind that moral image lies cold pragmatism. Canada needs newcomers more than newcomers need Canada. And African nations, with their rapidly growing populations and energetic youth, provide exactly what Canada is looking for. There is a hidden cost, however. Many African leaders worry about brain drain, the idea that the best and brightest will leave for opportunities abroad, leaving their home countries struggling. Doctors trained in Nigeria, engineers from Ghana, or entrepreneurs from Kenya might find it easier now to move permanently to Canada. While this benefits Canada's economy, it could leave gaps in Africa's development. Some argue that visa-free travel should be balanced with stronger investment in African education and industry, so that opportunity flows both ways. Another hidden layer lies in trade. By strengthening people-to-people ties, Canada is laying the groundwork for future business partnerships. African entrepreneurs who visit Canada may one day expand their businesses there. Canadian companies, in turn, will find it easier to access African markets. Visa policy becomes a tool, not just of migration, but of economics. And yet, not everyone is convinced that this is purely about partnership. Some analysts believe that the policy is also about security. By carefully selecting the 10 countries, Canada may be seeking to ensure that migration flows remain manageable and low risk. Countries with histories of political instability, high asylum claims, or fragile governments are noticeably absent from the list. In that sense, this visa-free gesture is both generous and cautious, open but still selective. The ripple effects of this decision are already being felt. Families across Africa are discussing new travel plans. Universities in Canada are preparing for higher numbers of African students. Businesses are imagining new connections. But at the same time, politicians, economists, and activists are debating what this means long-term. Is Canada truly opening its arms, or is it securing its future at Africa's expense? The truth lies somewhere in between. Visa policies are never just about visas. They are about power, economics, and the flow of people that shape our world. By granting 10 African countries visa-free travel, Canada is rewriting its relationship with the continent. But it is also rewriting its own story about who it wants to be in the 21st century. For some, this is a moment of celebration. For others, a moment of caution. But for everyone, it is a reminder that every border we cross, every visa we apply for, every journey we make, carries with it the weight of history, politics, and hidden reasons that stretch far beyond a single trip. So, the next time you hear that a country has gone visa-free, ask yourself, what does it really mean? Who benefits? Who loses? And what future is being built quietly behind the headlines? Because in the end, freedom of movement is never just about movement. It is about the future of nations.